Magical hats. Card type, trap, property, normal. During your opponent's battle phase, choose 2 spell or traps from your deck and 1 monster in your main monster zone. Special summon them as normal monsters, attack 0, defense 0, and face down defense position. Set the chosen monster if it is face up and shuffle them on the field. The 2 cards chosen from your deck are destroyed at the end of the battle phase and cannot remain on the field except during this battle phase. Card trivia, magical hats. One of the hats in this card's artwork appears in the artworks of Fusion Recycling Plant, Twin Twisters, and Waybridge. This card has an anime-exclusive counterpart, Miraculous Hats. This card also has an anime-exclusive Rush Duel counterpart, Magical Hat Trick. This card's effect is based on the common magic trick of using hats to hide or make things appear. Another magic trick-themed card used by Yugimoto, Mystic Box, is based on the Escape Artist side of Magician Axe, and also bears the same question marks the hats do. Both cards' effects served as the effects of Dark Magician's Dungeon Dice Monsters version in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. In the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga and anime, this card would create the 4 hats in this card's artwork to hide the player's monsters, randomly shuffle them, and prevent the opponent from knowing which monsters are where without attacking. Also, in the manga and anime, it also allowed the player to hide a spell or trap card or cards underneath one of the hats, which would be activated whenever one of the hats concealing them was destroyed. This is reflected in the card's effect to special summon spell or trap cards as normal monsters in face-down defense position. Despite this card's artwork showing 4 hats, its user can only select 3 cards in the OCG and TCG, including a monster and 2 spell or trap cards. This is likely a reference to the duel between Yami Yugi and Strings when he used Spellbinding Circle and Magic Cylinder while he controlled Dark Magician Girl together in a failed attempt to destroy Slifer the Sky Dragon. Card appearances, Magical Hats, Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. In the anime, when this card's effect activates, 4 hats appear and place themselves on the controller's monsters. The hats then randomly shuffle themselves to hide the monster or monsters and prevent the opponent from knowing which monsters are where. Without attacking, Duelist Kingdom. In Episode 9, Yami Yugi uses this card in his duel against Ghost Kaiba, who was disguised as Kaiba at the moment. He uses this card to create 4 hats and hides his Dark Magician from Blue Eyes White Dragon. Blue Eyes White Dragon then attacks a hat. In the next episode, the attack destroys the hat, but it turns out to be empty. Next turn, Blue Eyes attacks and destroys another hat, but this activates Spellbinding Circle, which holds down Blue Eyes and decreases its attack by 700. Yugi then releases his Dark Magician out of the hat it was hiding in. Dark Magician then attacks and destroys Blue Eyes White Dragon. In the second above-mentioned episode, this card appears on Kaiba's computer as soon as he and the computer get inside Arena 146 and find out that Yugi is dueling the Ghost Kaiba, who is using Kaiba's deck. This card also appears in the computer's explanation when it explains how Yugi defeated the first copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon. In Episode 20, Yugi uses this card during his tag duel with Joey Wheeler against the Paradox Brothers. He uses this card to create 4 hats and hide his Dark Magician and Joey's Flame Swordsman, Dungeon Worm, who was powered up by Invigoration and the effect of Monster Tamer, then attacks a hat, but it turns out to be empty. Joey then releases his Flame Swordsman out of the hat it was hiding in. Joey then equipped his monster with Salamandra, increasing its attack by 700. Flame Swordsman then attacks Dungeon Worm, and because the latter is weak against fire, it loses the boost it got from Monster Tamer, making its attack 2200. Flame Swordsman then destroys Dungeon Worm. In the next episode, Gate Guardian's bottom section attacks the flood and floods the maze. This card was able to protect Dark Magician as he was still inside a hat during the attack. However, Flame Swordsman is destroyed because it was weak against water. This caused its attack to decrease by 300 and had no defense against the attack. Yugi would then attack Gate Guardian with Summoned Skull, since the water around the area will help guide his monster's attack towards Gate Guardian. The Paradox Brothers try to use one of their monster's section's effects to protect itself, but nothing happens. Yugi reveals that one of the attacked hats contained Spellbinding Circle, which Yugi then activates to prevent Gate Guardian's sections from defending against his Summoned Skull's attack, as well as weaken each section's attack by 700. Because of that, the attack made by Summoned Skull destroys Gate Guardian's bottom section. Later, Yugi releases his Dark Magician from the hat it was hiding in, so that it could move further through the maze. In episode 33, this card appears when Yami Yugi explains to Joey that Duel Monsters is about the balance between monster, spell, and trap cards. In the dub version of this episode, this card is shown within a series of scenes from previous episodes that are shown after Yugi and Joey make it clear to each other that they will duel their hardest to see who will get to duel Pegasus. In episode 34, Yugi uses this card during his duel against Joey. He uses this card to create 4 hats and hide his Dark Magician in one. Joey's Black Skull Dragon then destroys a hat, but it turns out to be an empty one. Joey then tries to get Yugi to release his Dark Magician out by accidentally summoning Garusis in attack position. However, Yugi is not fooled by this and just sets a card face down. Joey's Black Skull Dragon then attacks another hat, but that hat was empty too. On Joey's next turn, Black Skull Dragon destroys another third hat, but this allows Yugi to activate Spellbinding Circle, holding down Black Skull Dragon and reducing its attack by 700. The last hat containing Dark Magician was destroyed shortly after Yugi releases Dark Magician. Yugi then equips Dark Magician with Book of Secret Arts to increase its attack and defense by 300. Dark Magician then attacks and destroys Black Skull Dragon. In episode 35, this card is shown in Yugi's hand during his duel against Maximilian Pegasus. In the next episode, this card is still shown in Yugi's hand. In the following episode, Yami Yugi uses this card to create 4 hats and hide his Dark Magician in one of them. Pegasus then uses his Millennium Eye to read Yami Yugi's mind to find the hat that hides the Dark Magician. But Yami Yugi switches minds with Yugimoto, leaving Pegasus unable to find the location as Yugi doesn't know. Pegasus's Toon Summoned Skull then attacks one hat, but it was empty. On Pegasus's next turn, Toon Summoned Skull attacks another hat, but that was empty too. Later, Pegasus activates Magical Neutralizing Force to destroy the remaining hats and reveal Dark Magician. Legendary Heroes. In episode 44, Yugi uses this card while he and his friends were inside the Big Five's rigged virtual world and were trying to save Kaiba. He uses this card to create 4 hats and hide himself and his friends in one of the hats so that they could escape the Labyrinth tanks. One of the Labyrinth tanks then attacked the hat that went down on Yugi and his friends, but it turned out to be empty. Yugi and his friends then get out of the hat they were under and begin on escaping the maze. Dungeon Dice Monsters. In episode 46, this card is shown on some TV monitors, and we're showing the duels that occurred in Duelist Kingdom. Battle City. In episode 51, Yugi uses this card in his duel against Bandit Keith, while the latter was possessed by Merrick Ishtar. Yugi uses this card to create 4 hats and hide his Dark Magician in one of them. Keith then activates Magic Jammer to negate the effect of this card and destroy it. In episode 61, Yugi uses this card during his duel against Arcana. When Arcana activates Mystic Guillotine to destroy Yami Yugi's Dark Magician, Yami Yugi activates this card to create 4 hats and hide his Dark Magician in one of them. Mystic Guillotine then destroys a hat, but it turns out to be empty. Arcana then activates Thousand Knives to destroy Yugi's Dark Magician, since the former's effect is able to automatically figure out which hat Dark Magician is under. But Yugi activates Cursebreaker to negate and destroy both Thousand Knives and this card. In episode 65, this card is shown in Yami Yugi's hand during his duel against Strings, while the latter was possessed by Merrick Ishtar. In the next episode, Yugi uses this card to create 4 hats and protect his Dark Magician girl from being destroyed by the effect of Slifer the Sky Dragon. As she had less than 2,000 defense, the effect of Slifer then destroys a hat, but it turns out to be empty. Later, Slifer the Sky Dragon attacks the hat that contains Dark Magician girl, but Yugi activates Magical Cylinder and Spellbinding Circle to decrease the attack of Slifer by 700 as well as redirect the attack to Slifer. However, Strings uses the effect of Jam Defender to let Revival Jam intercept the attack, destroying it instead. Virtual World. In episode 99, this card appears when Yami Yugi was building his Virtual World deck for his duel against Gansley. In episode 103, this card appears in the flashback Taya Gardner has when she remembers Yugi talking about Maha Velo looking similar to him and having a great power inside its effect. In episode 113, Yami Yugi uses this card during his tag duel with Joey against the Big Five, who are using Tristan Taylor's body. He uses this card to create 4 hats and hide his Dark Magician, his Deckmaster, within one of them. Yugi then uses his Deckmaster's special ability to duplicate this card's effect, creating another 4 hats and hiding Joey's Flame Swordsman, Joey's Deckmaster in one of them. Berserk Dragon then attacks all of the hats on Yugi's side of the field to destroy Yugi's Deckmaster. The 3 empty hats were destroyed, but before the 4th attack could destroy Yugi's Deckmaster, Joey orders his Deckmaster to intercept the attack. Joey activates Silver Dollar to prevent his monster from being destroyed and prevent himself from taking battle damage. This card also appears in a flashback Yami Yugi has when he remembers Joey using the Deckmaster ability of Flame Swordsman to transfer 1,000 of its attack to this card, which is why Joey was able to use Silver Dollar on Flame Swordsman when it intercepted the attack Berserk Dragon made on Dark Magician. Battle City Finals. In episode 129, this card is shown in Yami Yugi's hand during his duel with Kaiba. In the next episode, this card is still shown to be in Yugi's hand. In the following episode, Yugi discards this card in order to activate Spell Textbook. In the second above-mentioned episode, this card is seen in a flashback Yugi has when he reminds himself that Exchange may have helped him get Slifer the Sky Dragon into his hand. But it also helped Kaiba, too. Waking the Dragons. In episode 157, this card can be seen in Yami Yugi's hand during his duel against Raphael. In episode 175, Yami Yugi uses this card during his duel against Raphael. When Guardian Iatos attacks Dark Magician, Yami Yugi activates this card to create 4 hats and hide his Big Shield Gardna and his Dark Magician within one of them. Guardian Iatos then destroys a hat, and it then reveals that the hat contained Big Shield Gardna. Because of that, Big Shield Gardna is destroyed. Guardian Elma then attacks and destroys another hat, but it was empty. However, Raphael did this so he would have a higher chance at getting rid of Yugi's Dark Magician. Guardian Grarl then attacks and destroys another hat, but it's revealed to be empty, so Dark Magician was safe for the moment. The last hat containing Dark Magician was automatically disappeared afterwards, since there's only 1 hat remaining after the 3rd attack. Later, Yami Yugi activates the effect of Amulet Dragon to banish all spell cards from his graveyard and increase its attack by 300 for each spell card banished this way. In episode 184, this card appears in a flashback Yami Yugi has when he remembers playing the Seal of Orichalcos against Yugi's Better Judgment manga. Yugi uses this card when he duels the Ventriloquist of the Dead. He uses this card to hide his Dark Magician after the Ventriloquist prevented Yugi from having his monsters defend themselves with Stop Defense. Blue Eyes White Dragon then attacks a hat, but it turns out to be empty. Next turn, Blue Eyes White Dragon attacks another hat. But that hat is revealed to contain Spellbinding Circle, which Yugi then used to immobilize Blue Eyes and weaken its attack by 700. Yugi then released his Dark Magician out of the hat it was hiding in and proceeded in attacking Blue Eyes with Dark Magician, destroying the former monster. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. This card appears as a magic card in the anime's Japanese closing song, Borderline Battle. In episode 180, this card is seen in Yugi's hand during his duel against Jade and Yuki. Scripted duels. In the non-canon duel North American WCQ 2012-2011 special, Yugi vs. Yusei, Yugi activates this card to create 4 hats to hide Dark Magician Girl. Yusei attacks and destroys 2 empty hats with Stardust Dragon and Junk Warrior. The next turn, Yugi releases his Dark Magician Girl from the hat it was hiding in. In the non-canon duel World Championship 2013 special Mai vs. Yugi, Yugi activates this card to create 4 hats to hide Dark Magician. Mai attacks and destroys 2 empty hats with Harpy's Pet Dragon and Cyber Harpy Lady the next turn. Yugi releases his Dark Magician from the hat it was hiding in. This appears in the non-canon duel World Championship 2016 special Yugi vs. Kaiba. Yugi uses this card in his duel with Kaiba. When Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon attacks Dark Magician, Yugi activates this card to hide Dark Magician in one of the 4 hats. Due to its own effect, Neo Blue Eyes attacks and destroys 3 of the hats, none of which contains Dark Magician. Video games. Kuroe uses this card in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's World Championship 2009 Stardust Accelerator.